the Mortality Mindset podcast with Patrick Mathieu, designed to help you live a life of radical resilience at home, at work, everywhere.
Hi, it's Patrick Mathieu. Welcome to the Mortality Mindset podcast. I want to talk today about something. What I want to start with is something that I saw on Facebook, and it didn't have an author attributed to it, so I can't tell you who it came from or who said this. But here's what it said. It said, "Had I known in March that it was the last time I would be in a restaurant, I would have ordered the dessert." Do you feel like that sometimes? You know, it's been a while now. It's been quite a while that we've been in this state of, depending on where you are, you've been in lockdown, you've been in self-quarantine, you've been, it's not been business as usual. It's not been a normal way of living for a while. And I know that this is causing all kinds of people to react differently. Some people are really looking at this as just, it's just something we have to get through, and we're just going to, keep our head down and get through it, and then it'll all be normal. We'll all just get right back to normal and everything will be fine. And other people are getting really bogged down in arguing and fighting and politicizing things and conspiracy theories. And, that there's a whole group of people who that's where they go with this. But what I find really interesting is that this whole pandemic, this whole coronavirus way of being that the world is under right now is really familiar to me, because it's where I've lived for a number of years. And, certainly the phase that we're in right now, I lived this way for 6 years. So, the short version of this, if you know this already, you know exactly where I'm going with this. But if you don't know my story, I was born with a really unique heart. And when I was 18, I had cardiologists, like leading cardiologists, tell me that they hoped I lived to be 30 and that there was nothing they could do for me. And, from 18 to 30, I don't know, what the hell do you do with that? But it didn't even take me until 30. It took me 6 years to get my head around, what do you do with that information, and how do you proceed? How do you live? How do you function? What do you do? Is every time I went to a restaurant the last time? Would it just be dessert and screw the vegetables? Is that how I was supposed to live? And I did, for 6 years, that's the cloud I lived under. And I feel like that's the cloud that the world is under right now with this whole pandemic, because we don't have a vaccine. We don't have a worldwide vaccine available yet. We don't really know certain if immunity and this concept of herd immunity. And I'm not trying to get into any sort of, debates or discussion about this. So if you've got comments about, the virus and the immunity stuff, don't bother sending them, because I'm not interested in getting into that. What I'm interested in getting into is the lessons that we can learn from this. So right now we're under this cloud of uncertainty. We don't have a vaccine. We don't know what the immunity situation is. We're not 100% sure, and nobody can guarantee us that if you get the virus and you survive and you come out of this just fine, is that it? Are you immune to it? Could you potentially get it again? We're not really sure of that, and nobody can tell us. So right now, we're living under that same cloud that I lived under for 6 years, where every day I thought, man, this could be the last one. And even if it's not the last one, it's just a ticking time bomb until I hit 30, and then that's definitely the last one, because that's what they told me, and that's what I believed. That caused me no end of grief. And, my first book, What's Your Expiry Date, is all about that. It's all about, how I dealt with that, it wasn't all graceful. It wasn't, there's the bargaining, the anger and the depression and all the good stages. I went through them to varying degrees. But what I realized is that that's what it takes. It takes going through those stages. And I feel like this is an opportunity for the world to go through those stages now. And, after those 6 years, so I got this news when I was 18. After those 6 years, I came to realize that I was seeing my 30th birthday as a death sentence. You're 30, that's all you get, and then you're done. But later, when I hit that 6th year, I said, "Oh my God, you know what? This isn't a death sentence at all. This is a wake-up call." Because we all have what I was calling my 30th birthday my expiry date, which is why the book's called "What's Your Expiry Date?" And I realized, we all have an expiry date. It just depends on when it is, and nobody really knows when it is. So it isn't necessarily my heart that's going to be the problem. I could get hit by a bus. Like, there's a million reasons why I could go. But the bottom line, and I was getting hung up on 30 was too young and all of this. But I realized it's not a question of when, it's a question of what am I doing in the meantime? And once I realized that at the age of 24, I thought, oh shit, this frees up so much of my thinking, because it's not all, a countdown. It's not this sword of Damocles hanging over my head, ready to drop on me. The sword is still there, right? Like, it's there for each and every one of us. That's the opposite. That's the flip side of living is dying. It's part of the deal. That's what we all signed up for, whether we meant to or not, right? And there's no other way out of it. I used to laugh. My father would say, if and when I die, and I always laughed and said, like, if I didn't see that checkbox on the form, like where was that? But I think a lot of people right now with Corona, and so let me just jump back here. So when I started doing this work, when I started speaking and writing about this in 2003, this is I told people this story. I told people about my experience with mortality and how it didn't need to be a doom and gloom scenario. It didn't need to be depressing and morbid. It could actually be empowering, and it could actually be something that we use to our advantage to step out of the mundane, step out of the boring, to make better choices, to let go of things that don't matter, and just really get clear about our lives. Because to me, that's what mortality, the lens of mortality on this whole situation, gives that ability to have that clarity. And so, since 2003, I've been sharing this story and trying to encourage people to join me in that way of thinking, to join me in the mortality mindset, what I call the mortality mindset. And I've had some great success with that. I've reached, thousands of people through my books and through the podcast and through coaching and through speaking. And, I've just recently started doing online classes, and that's helping people. But it's always been, kind of abstract for people. They need to play along. They need to buy into to my concept of an expiry date. And, I've got a bunch of different ways that I help people with that. I have a tool that I created called the Mortality Manual. And you can get it for free. It's on my website. You can, if you sign up to the newsletter, you'll get a copy of it there. But it's a great little tool. I think it's like 25 pages or something like that, a PDF, but it's a workbook. It's got all kinds of suggestions for ways that you can begin to get your head around your mortality, and not just like thought exercises, but real world exercises, things that you can be doing. And, so I've been doing that. The other thing, and this is something I did for me way before I started speaking or writing, was when I, at 24, when I came to realize that, 30, my 30th birthday that I was seeing as my expiry date, that might be the end. It might not be, because what happens if it's 27? What happens if it's 29? What happens if it's tomorrow? And I didn't want to lose sight of that urgency. I didn't want to fall into what I came to think of as the world of the immortals. People who are walking around living as though they're immortal, as though they're going to live forever. So what I did to avoid the world of the immortals is I took the numerals of my 30th birthday and I turned them into a barcode and I tattooed them on my shoulder. And if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube right now, you can see it. I'm wearing a t-shirt so I can show you, but that's my expiry date. Those are the numerals of my 30th birthday. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the white in my beard, and you can probably guess that my 30th birthday was a little while ago. In fact, it was 20 years ago. So, and I think that's another important lesson that the world needs to, or that the world has an opportunity with this whole COVID-19, that the world has an opportunity to learn. Because I think there's a lot of people thinking about when we get back to normal. Soon it'll be back to normal. And once we get back to normal, and everybody, there's a lot of people itching to get back to normal, whatever that means. But I think back to normal is a lost opportunity, and I'm not looking for any kind of catastrophe to happen here. What I'm saying is the world has been given an opportunity to step into the mortality mindset right now. And in doing so, we get to think about the fact that we don't know what's happening. We get to live in that uncertainty. And it's not fun, and it's not pleasant, and it's not comfortable, but it's life. And I think, the artificial certainty that we seem to have a lot of the time when we're living as immortals, when we're living as though we're going to live forever, when we're living as though nothing's going to stop us. And, of course I'm going to live to be 102 and I'll die in my sleep after having, had lunch with all my loved ones. And it's going to be wonderful and peaceful. And Or and I know there's people out there who say, you know what, science is going to keep me alive forever. I know that's going to happen. And, I'm banking on the fact that, I don't know, my head will be frozen and there'll be some way, or I'll be uploaded to the cloud, or, whatever the scenario is. There are people out there who are just, putting all their money on this concept that they're going to be the ones to get out of here alive. And you know what? If that's where your thinking is, good luck. And I'm not trying to tell you what to think. I'm just saying, I think in the short term, I think in the here and now, it's far more powerful, I find anyways, from my experience with the mortality mindset, to be living from that place of uncertainty. Because the uncertainty is what makes things important. It's what makes things precious. It's what helps us decide what matters and what doesn't matter. We've all heard the thing that, nobody's going to be on their deathbed saying, I wish I'd worked more, or I wish I'd spent more time at the office. In the same way, we could update that. That's been around for years. We could update that nobody's going to be on their deathbed saying, oh, damn, I wish I had tweeted one more, or, one more meme. I wish I'd sent out one more meme. Or I wish I'd finished that, flame war argument that I was having on Facebook with somebody. Or I wish, that I'd gotten one more really sweet selfie with that sunset, and with the, because my hair was looking really good today, and blah, blah. Like, we get caught up in things that may not be important in the long run. And that's fine if they're important to you now. I just want to make sure that you've thought about it from a larger perspective. And what I mean by that is, my whole goal in doing what I do in the world of personal development around the mortality mindset is to make sure that I'm doing whatever I possibly can so that someone who hears my message and gets it doesn't end up at the end of their life, whenever that happens, that they don't end up with regrets. Now, we're all going to have regrets to some degree, but I don't want them to be crushing regrets, right? I don't want it to be that, damn it, why did I spend so much time at the office? Or I don't want it to be like, crap, why have I not been talking to that person? Why am I still holding on to that grudge? That's not that. I thought there would be time. This is the refrain I want us to be, do everything humanly possible to stay away from, is I thought there would be more time. Because I know so many people who talk about the concept of more time and the concept of having enough time. I thought there'd be enough time to write that book that I've always wanted to write. Or I thought there'd be enough time to do that thing, take that trip, start that business, whatever it is. I thought there'd be enough time. And, coronavirus has really been a global wake-up call that, yeah, there might not be enough time. There was a time that you went to a restaurant for the last time in months, right? Now, absolutely fingers crossed that we'll all be back into restaurants in short order, and that you and I and all of our loved ones will be safe and not drastically affected by this. I absolutely certainly hope that. But had I told you in March that we'd be talking about this in May, man, I don't know that you'd believe me. I don't know who would have believed anybody. I wouldn't have believed it. But there it is. And, so what I find really interesting though is some people take that concept of I would have ordered the dessert, right? And they go too far with it. And too far is a judgment, so I'll take that back. They dive in head first with it. And I think that's absolutely natural in a circumstance like we're in right now. The uncertainty, living in the uncertainty is uncomfortable and it sucks. And sometimes we just want comfort. So maybe, whatever your dessert is, in the sense of I would have ordered the dessert, whatever your dessert is, maybe you're going to just go to town on it. You're going to just eat whatever you want, or you're going to, whatever it is, whatever. Maybe that's where you're going to go. But that's not sustainable, right? And this was something I learned between 18 and 30, was you can't, that whole carpe diem idea, I think sometimes it's seductive, right? You're like, yeah, I'm going to carpe diem. I'm going to go out there and seize the day and I'm going to make the most of it. But how do you do that exactly when you still have bills to pay? How do you do that when you still are trying to live a life, right? It would be great if you knew for certain that your time was up and then you could just, plan it out. And that's what I was doing. I thought, okay, 30 is all I get. And so I was living according to that. But I remember there was a bunch of years ago, I can't remember how many years ago now, but a bunch of years ago, there was a man, I think he was in the UK, and his doctors told him, we're very sorry, but you have pancreatic cancer. And it's highly aggressive and, you probably don't have much time left. And so this man said, okay, carpe diem. He sold everything he owned and he went on a trip. He went on around the world trip, just staying in the best places, eating the best food, just seeing all the sights, like just an absolute banner send off for himself. And when he got back home to England or to the UK, whichever part of the UK he was in, I don't know. When he got back home, there was a message for him from his doctors. And so he went to see them and they said, yeah, this is kind of embarrassing, but it wasn't actually pancreatic cancer. It was pancreatitis and, you're going to be fine. And here's this poor guy who has nothing. Like, he cashed it all in and spent it all on this trip. And I think that's what we want to avoid, is that chaotic thinking where you're like, damn it, we could all be gone tomorrow, so bring on the, death by chocolate, with the cake. Bring on all the chocolate you've got back there. Because we could all die tomorrow. Yeah, once in a while you can do that. Your birthday, go nuts. You can do that. Every day, it's probably not a sustainable way to live. And the real challenge of the mortality mindset, and the real opportunity that I think that the coronavirus is bringing everybody, is the opportunity to face that challenge of figuring out what really matters. At the end of the day, what matters most to you? And, is it going to be the dessert? Is it going to be the chocolate? Is it going to be, the things that you have on your checklist? Because we all have hopes and dreams and we all have goals. But I've seen this in my own life, and I've seen it in coaching clients. I've been a certified coach since 2008. Over 10 years, I've seen people who swore up and down that they knew what was important for them, but when they get faced with a real wake-up call, whether it's their mortality knocking on their door or the mortality of a loved one, when they get faced with that level of a wake-up call, it shakes their foundations a little bit. And it's an opportunity for them to rethink those priorities, those goals, those things that matter to them. And that's what I think this whole situation that we're in right now, I think that's the gift. That's the silver lining to all of this, if we take it. And I know it's asking a lot. I know, in the midst of all of this, because you may be out of work, you may be facing a really uncertain future financially or socially. Maybe you haven't seen your loved ones in ages because you're not able to. Maybe you have health challenges. Like maybe this is getting really close to home for you, the virus. And so it's a challenge, but I think it's also, like I said, the opportunity that's hidden in here, the silver lining in all of this, is that it's a chance for us to really pause and to reflect and to get clear about what matters most. To get clear about, when push comes to shove, at the end of the day, whatever the cliche is you want to throw, when the chips are down, like pick your cliche and throw it in there. But when it comes right down to it, what matters to you? And when you get clear about that in the face of something like this, and you hold on to that, and make it part of your core foundation, that's when life gets really good, right? And that's what I'm trying to do with the mortality mindset. I have a program called What Matters Most, and it's the absolute cornerstone of the mortality mindset. And it's almost finished. I'm going to put a link to it. It's going to be an online program that you can go through. And it takes you through a process, a process I've been working on for years, and I've worked with a lot of people on a one-on-one basis, in workshops, and now online. But a process that takes you through a number of exercises that you do on your own, that are self-reflection exercises to help you get super clear about what matters most to you. I'm not going to tell you what matters most. That's not what it's about. It's not about anybody else telling you what matters most. It's about you, owning your life, and your death is part of that. So the mortality piece is in there, right? So it's about owning your life and about getting very, very clear about what matters most to you, and then locking that in and living that way. And if there's a vaccine tomorrow, and if we all go back to normal, whatever normal is, or if we end up in some new normal, if we end up in a very different world, I think you're going to be I know you're going to be much better off if you're approaching that with the foundation of what matters most. If you've taken the time to do that exercise and to get very clear. And the what matters most piece sets you up with what I call a personal guidance system. And it's something that you can really lock in on and use, in a number, in every area of your life, in your business life, in your financial life, in your personal life, in all areas of your life. When you do the what matters most process and go through that and come out with that personalized guidance system, it just really sets you up for a very different life afterwards. And one that, if God forbid something like this ever happens again, that shakes us to the core, whether it's, hopefully nothing like this is going to happen again on a global scale. But the reality is this kind of, core shaking thing is going to happen to each of us on a personal scale, at some point. And if you're approaching it with that solid foundation, that solid cornerstone of knowing what matters most, it just puts you in a much, much better place to weather the storm and to do what you need to do to try to come through that. And the absolute bonus part is, in the back of your mind, you'll always know that if you don't come through it, because it is going to be your end, that you're finishing your life working towards what mattered most to you. That you won't have those regrets where you say, shit, I wish I had more time. Right? Because that's all I want. That's all I want for you, for me, for my kids. I mean, that's why I've done this program, is so that, because I this is my legacy, my gift to my kids. I want to give them a blueprint for, it sounds grandiose, but for how to live based on the experiences that I've gone through. And I want to share that with you too. So I'll put the link to the program, to the What Matters Most program, in the show notes, and check that out. If you have any questions, reach out to me, and we can talk more about that. And if you've got questions or you want me to expand on any piece of this, I can do that in future episodes. But yeah, that's what I'm going to leave you with for today. So order the dessert. Take care. Wash your hands. Stay safe. Bye.